Hi, boys and girls. This is Wednesday, April 8th, Answers to the Spiral Math Part 2. And in the meantime, while I was working on Part 1 and getting ready to finish up with Part 2 here, Ms. Garcia noticed that I made a tragic copy error. What I did is on my original edition here in Part 1, I ended up with 6,447. She pointed out helpfully that this is actually a 2 and not a 7. And so the correct answer for the total amount of money that both accounts total up to is 6,842. By doing that, it saved me from a tragic calculation error later on and helped me to get the actual right answer. So the amount of money that each son would receive is going to be $3,421. And I went ahead and put that into my answer sentence right here. Each son will receive $3,421. So thank you, Ms. Garcia, for pointing that out for me. So I was able to save the day. And we're going to go ahead and move on to number 4 then. So I'll go ahead on the back of this page, and I'll just go ahead and put down my 4 and answers and work. And I'll scroll down here. So tell us what we're doing.
All right, so number 4 says, what is the value of 10 times 4,000? But they wanted you guys to use mental math. So you guys can write down for your answer sentence a number sentence, or you can say the product is, whichever one. I personally just did the number sentence, but so is how I solved this one is I did my mental multiplication, which is 4 times 10, which gives you 40. And then you have to move, what am I trying to say right now? You have to then add your zeros. So I added 3 zeros because 4,000 times 10, you have to add that 1 extra 0. And that should give you guys 40,000.
Super easy.
So 10 times 4,000 gives you 40,000. So, yes.
All right, great. And we're talking about mental math again, really over here in number 5. On this one, it may be hard to see that. Actually, it's hard to see all of it. So hopefully, when in doubt, if you're not sure, zoom in. If you zoom in, you'll get a much better idea of what you're going to be doing. So it looks like we're going to be taking 8 3/10 and dividing that by 100. And I left myself not too much space here for my dividend, so, or quotient, I mean, but I'll maybe put it down here to leave some space. When we divide with anything that's like a 10 or 100 or 1,000, anything with just 1 and a bunch of zeros next to it, we can use mental math by moving the decimal around. And I'm going to do that now by rewriting the problem. And dividing means I'm going to be making the number smaller. So because I'm making the number smaller, I want to be moving the decimal to the left. And when I move the decimal to the left, since there aren't a lot of zeros here, I'm going to be annexing zeros. I'll put in a couple. I won't use them all, but I just want to make sure if I do move it, I want to make sure that I have enough zeros for me. And I can always rewrite it later on. So I look at my 100, and the 100 has how many zeros, boys and girls, next to it? Oops. 2, that's right. So we're going to go ahead and move the decimal in 8 3/10 over to the left 2 times. So I'm going to go 1 and 2 and place the decimal 2 spaces over. And now it's a little hard to see, so I'm going to rewrite it. And our quotient is going to be 0 and 83. And let me just make sure. 1, 2. 1, 2, 0 and 83 thousandths. And I'll go ahead and rewrite this here as my dividend. Now, copy error. And then make sure that I write the correct thing, because I had it right here, but I didn't write it right here, so I made a copy error. So I'm going to rewrite it again. Now, one thing, I also want to make sure I'm not doing a reading error here. So I'm going to look to make sure, and oh yes, there's not just dividing here. It also says to check your answer using multiplication. Now, the great thing about using hundreds and tens is that we can use the mental math again in multiplication. It's pretty easy. I'm just going to take my product, which was the 83 thousandths, and rewrite it over here. And I'm going to be demonstrating some mental math multiplication. I'm going to multiply by 100. When I multiply 100, I'm basically doing the opposite of what I just did. I'm going to, instead of moving the decimal to the left, I'm going to move the decimal to the right. And how many number of spaces am I going to move that decimal, boys and girls? 2. Because there's 2 zeros in the number 100. So I'm going to go ahead and move it over 1, 2. And because I moved it over 2, I know that I did this correctly because I'm ending it up back at where I started. 8 3/10, which was my original dividend right here. So as long as I've got multiplication checking here on my work and I have my answer right here, you're good to go. And we'll go ahead and take a look at number 6. Go ahead, Ms. Garcia.
Alrighty, so it says Rico is finding 7.5 times 100. He made a tragic error. Find and correct his mistake, then write the correct answer. So it shows what his work was right there. He wrote the 7.5 times 100, and then it shows how he moved the decimal. But boys and girls, for your guys' answer sentence, you want to write down for the first part, his mistake was, and his tragic mistake was, if you guys caught it, is he actually moved the decimal 2 places to the left when he should have moved it 2 places to the right. Because just like Mr. Yates showed us in number 5, when you're dividing by anything with a 0, 10, or 100, you move the decimal to the left because when you divide, you're making the number smaller. But on this one, you're actually multiplying, which means you're going to make it bigger, and he needed to move it to the right. So his mistake was he moved the decimal 2 places to the left instead of moving it to the right. And then, boys and girls, we're not quite done with this one. It then says, write the correct answer. So let's go ahead and show moving that decimal 2 places to the right. So you're going to go ahead and want to write down your 7.5 and then show moving that decimal 2 places to the right. So just like Mr. Yates is doing, and then he's going to add those zeros, and then he's going to go ahead and move that decimal 2 places to the right. So after you do that, you should end up with 750.
Oh, I made a copy error because I kept writing that decimal down, so I'm going to get rid of that decimal. And
yep, just like so. And then the decimal is at the end, and you guys can write it at the end as well as add that 0, or you can just leave it as 750. So for your guys' second part of your answer, you should say the correct answer is, and then go ahead and write your 750.
I love the answer sentences, and hopefully, boys and girls, you are using these too. Your words might be a little different here, but it should basically say the same thing about moving the decimal to the left instead of to the right. All right, we'll go on to number 7. Deidre read 5.5 books over summer break. Peyton read 4 times the amount of books that Deidre read. How many books did Peyton read? Well, first of all, Peyton's probably very excited there's a word problem about her. Even though I think it's a different spelling, but
Oh yeah, because Peyton's AY.
but let me go ahead and come up with my answer sentence. I'll say that Peyton. Oh, see, I was thinking of Peyton from our class. Peyton read, and I could just say blank books. Now, what's tricky about this one, boys and girls, is there are some words that are actually going to be used as numbers here. And so it's important that we read carefully the word problem to make sure that we don't miss those words. Deidre read 5 1/2, and I'm going to go ahead and just make sure I underline some of these things here. She read 5 1/2 books over summer break. Now, I'm going to write that as 5 1/2. So hopefully you didn't let the number monkey trick you and just didn't write 5, but you also included that half. So we're going to write 5 1/2. The next key word here is we see the word 4, or the number 4, but we also see the word times. So we're saying that Peyton read 4 times the amount of books, not just 4 books, but 4 times the amount that Deidre read. So that means, and since it says times right there, I know that I'm going to be using the number, or I'm going to be using multiplication. And I'm going to use the number 4 here after 5 1/2. So it'll be 5 1/2 times 4. I notice that I can't really multiply mixed numbers unless I turn them into improper fraction. So I'm going to take 5 times 5 1/2 and turn it into 11 halves. And then I'm also going to look here. I can't really multiply a whole number by a fraction. I have to turn this whole number into an improper fraction as well. So I'm going to turn 4 into 4 over 1. When I do that, now I can multiply across. 11 times 4 is 44. Make sure that I'm staying visible. 44, and then I'm also just going to erase that stray mark. 44, and then I'm going to go across here, and I'm going to take 2 times 1, and that becomes 44 over 2. Still an improper fraction, so I need to simplify this. And by simplifying, I'm just going to take 44 and divide it by 2. That's going to give me 22. So Peyton is a pretty good reader. She read 22 books. And let's go to number 8. Let me see if I have enough. Oh yeah, I have enough room here on the bottom. So go ahead, Ms. Garcia.
All right, so number 8 says, which is the ordered pair for the hat shop? So your first step for this should have been to find the hat shop out of all of that. So I see the pet store, the hat shop, playground, and pool. So you want to locate that hat shop and make sure that you guys are cutting the grass and letting it grow. So when you go left to right, that's going to be your x-axis, and then you go up, which is going to be on your y-axis. And you guys should have gotten, it looks like I wrote 2, 4 in parentheses. So you go over to the right 2, and then you go up 4.
I'm trying to erase these, Ms. Garcia, and it does not seem to be letting go. I kind of drew this by accident here, so I'm just going to pull these off so I avoid confusing the boys and girls. So what would our answer sentence be then?
For your answer sentence, you would say the ordered pair for the hat shop is, and then you guys should have had parentheses 2, 4, and then end parentheses. If I calculated that right, yeah. Yep, and then just don't forget your period at the end of your sentence, boys and girls. And you guys have officially completed spiral math.
Awesome. All right, thanks, boys and girls. Remember that if you wanted to see the first part of this, go to the part 1 spiral math video, and that'll get you the rest of the spiral math. Thank you, boys and girls. Bye-bye.